In today's video, we will be going over our ultimate guide to visiting White Sands National Park. This park is located in the Chihuahuan Desert in southern New Mexico, just outside of the small town of Alamogordo. Even though it is a younger park, having only gained its national park status in 2019, this area's history actually dates all the way back to the Ice Age, so it probably looked more like this. Actually, this is just a joke because back then this was covered underneath a prehistoric sea. But since then, it has dried out and become an amazing place to visit. Let's start by going over some very important information that you need to know before you come visit the park. One of the first important things that you need to think about is when is the best time to visit. November through February are the coldest months here, with nighttime and early morning temperatures dropping below freezing. Be sure to bring plenty of layers if you're going to be visiting during this time. The end of February through May is springtime here, and that means much more pleasant temperatures. But this is also the windy season. That means you might be dealing with sandstorms, and if you have winds that are 25 miles an hour or above, you will be experiencing almost whiteout conditions. May through August is the hottest time of the year at White Sands National Park, with June and July being absolute scorchers. The temperatures can be well over 100, and when you mix minimal shade with the sun reflecting off of the white sand, it can get pretty uncomfortable. The park recommends not starting a hike if it is over 85 degrees. And last but not least, we have July through September, which happens to be monsoon season. During this time, storms can build up quickly. Even if there's no rain, lightning might still occur during thunderstorms. If there's rain in the forecast, do not hike. If you're in the dune field during a lightning storm, take cover in a solid closed-door building such as a restroom or even in your car. If you're not near any shelter, squat low to the ground, place your hands over your ears, and keep your head between your knees. Now that we know when to visit, we are on to how much does it cost to get in. At the time of the recording of this video, it costs $25 per vehicle, and that pass will get you into the park for 7 days. If you have the America the Beautiful Pass or the park's annual pass, you can get in for free. Next is the hours of operation. Unlike a lot of national parks that are open 24 hours a day, White Sands National Park is open daily from 7 a.m. until 30 minutes after the local sunset. You may be wondering how much time you need to see the best that the park has to offer. In our opinion, a weekend or 2 full days should be sufficient. This should give you enough time to explore the inner park and take in a gorgeous sunset. You could do this park in 1 day, but it would feel pretty rushed. This park is kind of out in the middle of nowhere, so figuring out where to stay is pretty important. If you're not going to be backcountry camping, the 2 closest towns where you can find hotels are Alamogordo and Las Cruces. Both of these towns have affordable motels, B&Bs, cabins, and lodges. If you're wondering if you can bring your pets, the answer is yes. But they must be on a leash at all times, they cannot be left unattended, and please clean up after them. With all of that covered, we have just a couple more tips to help keep you safe on your visit to the park.
If you're going to be visiting the dunes, some of the things you should definitely pack are a hat and sunglasses, because not only do they make you look awesome, but the sand, with it being white, it is very, very bright, and it will pretty much burn your eyes out of your head.
Yeah, the sun's reflecting off of the white sand, so it's gonna be super, super bright. So always bring sunglasses, hat, sunscreen. Those are very important. And even in the winter, you still need to put on your sunscreen. That's very, very important. And then even though it seems like it doesn't make sense, but always if you're gonna go for a long hike, bring a jacket because it does get cold out here.
It is always a great idea to bring a GPS tracker with you out here. Now, don't judge this one, the broken screen and all, it's been through a lot. That being said, we have read in the literature that GPS can be a little bit unreliable out here, so you might want to be careful, but hopefully this will get you back to where you need to go. But it is even a better idea to pay attention to things like trail markers and landmarks, because those won't steer you the wrong direction, and you can trust these a little bit more.
Another important point when you're visiting White Sands National Park is to bring a lot of water. Like a lot of water, more water than you think you would need, because it's get really hot out here. And you don't just bring water, you do have to drink water. And then one of the most important thing is if you're going for a hike, and if you're not even halfway to your hike and you're already like more than halfway down to your water, turn back. And if you bring your dogs with you, bring extra water for your dogs, because they need water. They're just like us. You need to bring enough water for your dog, okay?
Even though this looks like the world's biggest sandbox, you shouldn't dig any tunnels out here. There have been cases where the tunnels have collapsed on people and it can easily cause suffocation, and that doesn't seem like a good time.
And now that we have officially covered all of the formalities, let's get to the part of the video that you have been waiting for, which is the best things to do inside White Sands National Park. Starting with item number 1 on the list, and that is sand sledding. This is a very unique way to spend your time at the park, and if you didn't bring a sled, don't worry because they sell and rent them at the visitor center. If you do end up stopping by the visitor center, don't forget to pick up some wax too, because it actually does help. There are a couple of spots that are really popular inside the park for sand sledding, and you can find out all about them by clicking in the upper corner right now. The second item on the list is hiking. There are 5 main trails in the park, and they range from 0.4 of a mile to 5 miles long. If you're looking for a nice easy trot, we recommend checking out the Interdune Boardwalk. That's the one that is 0.4 of a mile long, and it is the only trail in the park that is wheelchair accessible. There are only 2 trails in the park that we didn't do, and one of them was the Playa Trail. This one is also 0.4 of a mile, but some people have said that this was their least favorite hike at White Sands. The next trail on the list is the Dune Life Nature Trail. It is a 1.1 mile loop, and it is marked with blue trail markers. This is the closest trail to the park entrance, and there is more plant life here than the other hikes, which are closer towards the heart of the park. Moving on to the next hike on the list, which is the Backcountry Camping Trail. With a distance of 2 miles long, this is the second longest hike in the park, and it is also our favorite. This trail is designated by the orange markers, and it's used by both hikers and backcountry campers. The hike loops around the backcountry campsites, hence the name. And one of the things that we loved about it is that it gave us gorgeous views of the dunes in the heart of White Sands National Park without embarking on a long, strenuous trail like the Alkali Flat Trail. Speaking of the Alkali Flat Trail, it is the last one on the list, and also one that we didn't end up doing. This trail is 5 miles long, and that doesn't sound like a lot until you've hiked up and down the sand dunes. That is why Alkali Flats is the most strenuous trail in the entire park. It's marked with red trail markers, and we heard that the views from it are gorgeous, so if you're up for the challenge, go for it. Next up, we have backcountry camping. Even though there are no campgrounds at White Sands National Park, they offer the opportunity for backcountry camping. There really is nothing like camping in the middle of the glistening white sand under a star-studded sky. This is, however, only recommended for experienced campers. There are only 10 campsites, and it requires a 1-mile hike in through the backcountry camping trail. The next activity on this list is very near and dear to our hearts, and that is photography. As photographers, we were in heaven here. It was just so beautiful everywhere you look. Even if you're not a photographer, this place is so photogenic that you'll feel like one. As a little bit of a bonus, we wanted to give you some awesome tips to take some amazing pictures of your trip to White Sands National Park. Tip number 1 is that sunrise and sunset is the best time for photos here. I wouldn't bother taking too many photos around noon because the sun washes out the beautiful dunes. With the warm glow of sunrise or sunset, you'll get a ton of contrast between light and shadows, making your photos more interesting. Tip number 2 is that there are many off the beaten path spots where you can find pristine dunes with no footprints. Most of the time, you don't even have to go very far to find them. However, if you do go off exploring, please be sure to pay attention to your surroundings so you don't get lost in the dunes. And the last tip is to have fun out there. We love playing with the curves and shapes of different dunes. Don't be afraid to move around to get the best composition. The second to last item on this list is taking the 8-mile long Dunes Drive. This is the only way to access the park. The first 4 miles of the road are paved, while the rest of it is tightly packed with gypsum sand. It was pretty cool to drive on the second half of it because it almost looks like you're driving on snow. Please note that you are only allowed to park at designated parking spots along the drive, so don't just pull over at any random spot. But along this drive, you will pass by all of the trailheads, sledding spots, and picnic areas. We've now come to the last item on the list, and that is going on the ranger-guided sunset stroll. White Sands National Park offers several ranger programs, with the most popular one being the sunset stroll. You can take part in one of these strolls on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, weather permitting. The cool thing is that you don't need to sign up for it or make a reservation. All you have to do is show up at the sunset stroll parking area at the scheduled time. We were pretty bummed because this is something we really wanted to do on our last visit, but it got canceled because we were having some pretty major sandstorms at the time. And that is going to do it for our ultimate guide to visiting White Sands National Park. Which item on this list interests you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And also, let us know if you have any other recommendations in the New Mexico area. We would love to go back. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because that tells the algorithm that we are doing something right. And for more information about White Sands National Park as well as other awesome adventures, head on over to thatadventurelife.com.